Have you ever sat alone and felt the weight of every word that was never meant to be said to you? Ever replayed the moments where you gave too much kindness, too much loyalty, too much forgiveness, and they mistook it for weakness? Let me tell you, you're not crazy. You're not too sensitive. You're just finally waking up. You're recognizing the poison you've been swallowing and calling it love. You're realizing that the soul can only take so much. So many fake apologies, draining conversations, and silent betrayals. And if you're reading this right now, hear me. This is your wake-up call. The most powerful move you'll ever make isn't to argue, explain, or prove your worth. It's to go silent, to get still, to walk away without a warning, without a long message, without a final conversation. You don't owe anyone closure. They had chances. They made choices. Now it's time you make yours. Toxic people feed on your reaction. They thrive on your confusion. They twist your kindness into control. But the moment you stop feeding them, you become untouchable. When you stop responding, you start healing. When you stop defending, you start growing. When you stop explaining to those who are committed to misunderstanding you, you reclaim your peace. And that rattles them more than anything you could ever say. Because they expected you to keep trying. They expected you to stay in the cycle, stuck in the same pain. But you didn't. You chose different. You chose you. Silence is misunderstood. People think it's weakness. They think being quiet means you've given up. But silence is control, it's strength. Because anyone can yell. Anyone can react. But to stay calm in the storm, to hold your ground while chaos swirls around you, that takes a level of power most people can't even comprehend. Toxic people hate silence because it removes their grip. They can't twist your words if you say nothing. They can't gaslight your silence. They can't guilt trip what they can't reach. When you choose silence, you hold up a mirror. You force them to see themselves, and they can't handle the reflection. Your silence says, I've outgrown this. And when you stop playing the game, they stop winning. These people weren't looking for peace. They were looking for control. For emotional reactions. For chaos they could blame on you. The moment you react, you give them power. But silence? Silence flips the script. When you master the art of not engaging, you take back the battlefield. You stop defending. You stop justifying. You stop performing for people who never cared to understand you in the first place, and without fuel, their fire dies. Watch how people react when you stop reacting. See how uncomfortable they get when you no longer play along? That's when the mask slips. That's when their true self shows. And suddenly, you're not the villain. They just can't control the narrative anymore. They'll call you cold. They'll say you don't care. But what they really mean is, I can't control you anymore, and that's not your problem. That's their exposure. Your silence doesn't reveal who you are. It reveals who they've always been. You stop trying to prove your worth. You stop pleading to be seen. You get still. And in that stillness, you rise, you grow, you step into the next version of yourself. The one who doesn't need to be understood to feel whole. The one who knows that not everyone deserves access to your voice, your soul, your spirit. Silence becomes your boundary, your protection, your peace. Because not everyone who knows your name deserves a place in your heart. Not everyone deserves to hear your truth. Some people should never have access to your voice again. Silence is how you take your voice back, without saying a word. Because every time you explain yourself to someone who only wants to break you, you drain your own light. Every time you justify your boundaries to someone who never respected them, you lose a piece of your peace. But when you go quiet, you protect your soul. You guard your energy. You walk away. Not out of weakness, but out of wisdom. And that's when the healing begins. Staying silent doesn't mean you're dismissing the truth. It means you're protecting your spirit. Because not every battle deserves your presence, and not every situation is worth your energy. Your peace is sacred. Stop spending it on people who treat your life like a debate. You don't have to prove your kindness. You don't need to explain your heart. Just let your silence speak louder than any words ever could. The more silent you become, the more uncomfortable people, especially toxic ones, start to get. They'll poke, they'll prod, they'll push every button just to get a response. Because your silence doesn't just bother them, it undoes them. It leaves them powerless. That's when the texts come. That's when the "I miss you" messages arrive. But let's be real, they don't miss you. They miss the control. They miss the version of you who reacted to every insult. The one who explained, defended, apologized just to keep the peace. But now you're quiet. Now you're still. And that terrifies them, because silence is a mirror. It reflects their own chaos back to them. It shows them they no longer have access. And without access, they can't manipulate, confuse, or control you. Your silence becomes your shield, your boundary, your line in the sand that says, "I will no longer trade my peace for your presence." And here's the thing. Once you break, that's silence for them. Even once, they know they still have influence. They'll use it again. And again. That's why you hold the line. Without apology. Without explanation. Because when you choose your peace over their chaos, that's when your healing truly begins. You start attracting better. You feel lighter. You realize just how heavy their presence always was. Silence isn't passive, it's powerful. It's the decision to say, "I'd rather have peace in solitude than chaos in company." That's where growth lives. That's where clarity finds you. Because silence doesn't mean you don't have anything to say. It means you're saving your voice for those who deserve to hear it. And that shift, it changes everything. Your relationships evolve. Your standards rise. You stop needing validation from people who never valued you. You stop explaining yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you. You realize the only approval you ever really needed was your own. And from that moment forward, healing becomes real, deep, lasting. The more you grow, the more quiet you become, not because you're weak, but because you've seen what noise attracts. You've felt the drain of drama, and you know now it's not worth it. So you let it go, with silence. That's how you break cycles. That's how you reset your life. Not with a loud goodbye, but with a quiet exit. You stop answering the calls, you stop replying to the messages, you stop showing up to battles you never agreed to fight, and without saying a word, you create space for healing, for peace, for the future you were always meant to live. Let your silence be the announcement. Let your boundaries speak louder than any post or explanation, because you're not that same person anymore. You don't argue to be heard, you don't cry to be seen, you don't beg to be understood. You've grown, you've evolved, and you've learned that not everyone deserves access to your energy. So when someone tries to drag you back into the storm, they'll find nothing. No fight. No fuel, no fire, just silence. And that silence, that's what breaks them. Not your rage, not your words, but your calm, your absence, your progress. Because you're no longer playing their game. You've exited the arena, and in a world that's constantly screaming, your silence becomes your revolution. So next time someone tries to pull you back into the chaos, don't take the bait. Don't react. Don't explain. Don't defend. Just be still. Be silent. Let them argue with your absence. Let them talk to the echo of what they lost. Because once you understand that your silence holds more power than any comeback, you become untouchable, unshaken, unbothered. You don't need closure from the ones who broke you. You don't need validation from those who doubted you. You don't need to be loud to be heard. You just need to know this. Your peace is your power. And your silence is your strength. Peace is worth more than any toxic connection. And once you protect that peace with silence, those who once came to break you will never be able to reach you again. Let this sink in. You don't owe anyone closure. Not the one who betrayed you. Not the one who manipulated your emotions. Not the one who left you questioning your worth. You don't owe an explanation to someone who knew they were hurting you and did it anyway. We've been taught that everything should end with a conversation, with a mutual understanding, with a tidy little goodbye. But life isn't always neat like that. People break you and then expect you to comfort them on their way out. They want to hear, "I understand," after they left you bleeding. But this time? No. This time you choose you. This time your silence is your strength. Because sometimes the most powerful closure is walking away. without a single word. Closure has become a trap dressed as maturity. It tricks you into thinking that you're the bad one if you don't offer a final conversation. But let's be honest, where was their maturity when they ghosted you, lied to you, used you, and then acted like it was nothing? They had every chance to be kind, to be real, to stay. And now suddenly, when you're finally finding peace, they want answers. They don't want closure, they want access. They want to reopen a door that you've already locked. They want to soothe their guilt with your strength. But hear this clearly, you don't have to give them that. When someone who discarded you comes back asking to clear the air, it's rarely about your healing. It's because they noticed your silence. They saw you stop texting, stop reaching, stop breaking. And that unsettles them, so they come back, with soft words, with I miss you messages. But they don't miss you. They miss the control, the attention, the reaction. And the moment you respond, they'll use it to reel you back in, but not this time. Because closure isn't a conversation, it's a decision. It's that quiet, personal moment where you tell yourself, I deserve better. And that's it. No meeting, no messages, no explanations, just distance, just healing. You owe yourself peace. You owe yourself protection. But you don't owe anyone who harmed you a front row seat to your recovery. If they couldn't handle your vulnerability, they don't deserve your strength. You don't need their permission to move on. You don't need their presence to justify your healing. If they cared about closure, they would have cared enough to give you honesty when it mattered most. What they want now is relief from the weight of their own guilt. But that's not yours to carry. That's their burden. Let them hold it. Sometimes closure looks like an unanswered message. Sometimes it looks like the block button. Sometimes it's just you whispering to yourself, that was enough. Closure isn't about what they need. It's about what you need. And sometimes what you need is space. Space to rebuild. Space to remember who you were before the weight of that relationship. Space to breathe again. You're not cold for protecting yourself. You're not wrong for going silent. That's not cruelty. That's wisdom. That's growth. Sometimes people don't deserve your goodbye. They only deserve the version of you who once tried, and they lost that version. Let them live with that. You've already spent too many sleepless nights replaying conversations that never happened. Too many moments wondering if you could have said it better. But healing doesn't live in more words. Healing lives in acceptance. Accepting that they knew exactly what they were doing. Accepting that the apology may never come. Accepting that closure might never arrive. And still being okay with that. That's real strength. That's real freedom. Because once you stop believing someone else has to give you peace, you become unshakable. You stop waiting. You stop needing. You start becoming. You become your own closure, your own comfort, your own healing. And in that moment, everything changes. Nothing is more powerful than protecting your peace. So don't let anyone guilt you into reopening wounds just because they're curious about how you're healing. You are not an exhibit. You are not a story they get to revisit whenever nostalgia strikes. You are a human being, deserving of protection, not probing. If someone had the chance to treat you right and chose not to, they forfeited their privilege to ask for peace. Closure. It doesn't have to be mutual. It doesn't have to be spoken. It can be silent, firm, and unshakable. You don't need to hear I'm sorry to move on. You don't need to hear I miss you to know you were valuable. Because you already know. You were always enough. You don't owe them a text back. You don't owe them 5 minutes of your time. And you definitely don't owe them a meetup just to talk. That's not closure. That's the trap. That's where the cycle begins again. Where they pull you in with soft words and leave you more broken than before. Don't go there. Don't pick up the phone. Don't look back. Your peace is more important than their curiosity. The people who truly maniscare, they don't leave you needing closure. They give it freely, with honesty, with clarity, with kindness. Everyone else, they made their choice. Now you get to make yours, and if your choice is silence, let that be the loudest truth you ever speak. One day you'll look back and be grateful you never responded. Thankful you didn't send that message. Relieved you didn't sit across the table trying to explain your soul to someone who never respected it in the first place. Because closure doesn't always heal. It reopens wounds when it comes from the hands that caused the cut. The real healing begins when you stop expecting the person who broke you to be the one to fix you. When you stop looking for apologies that may never come. When you finally accept that they knew what they were doing and chose to do it anyway. That's when you grow. That's when you rise. That's when you realize their inability to see. Your worth is not your failure, it's their loss. So walk forward, quietly, strongly, without apology. And the next time you feel like you owe someone closure, pause. Ask yourself, who truly benefited the last time I gave them my heart, my words, my energy? Did it bring me peace or more pain? If the answer is pain, then you already have your closure. Because closure isn't something they give. It's something you claim. Privately, quietly, and once you claim it, you set yourself free. You walk out of the fire stronger, clearer, and untouchable. And not even the past can hold you down after that. There comes a point in your life when your peace is no longer up for negotiation. It's not a favor you extend. It's not a discount you offer for someone else's comfort. Your peace is your sanctuary, your shelter, and it's priceless. If it costs you your sleep, your smile, your sanity, it's too expensive. Let them call you selfish. Let them say you've changed. Because, yes, you have changed. You've grown tired of mistaking chaos for love. You've outgrown conversations that drain your spirit. You've walked away from environments that thrive on drama. Because once you taste real peace, you'll fight for it with everything you have. You will no longer apologize for protecting. What keeps you whole? Some people are addicted to chaos. They'll poke at your spirit just to provoke a reaction. They'll twist your words, blur your boundaries, stir confusion, and then call you the problem when you finally react. But your reaction isn't the issue. Their disrespect is. And the only cure is distance. Protect your energy like you would. Protect your child, without needing to explain, without needing to justify. Just do it. The people who truly value you will never ask you to sacrifice your peace to prove your love. The real ones bring calm, not storms. They fill your soul, they don't drain it. And when you finally start choosing yourself, the wrong ones will start to fall away. That's not a loss. That's God clearing the path. Not everyone deserves access to you. Some people need to lose the privilege of your presence permanently. Because peace doesn't come from outside validation. It's something you build within. And to protect it, you must be willing to let people go, without warning, without explanations, and most importantly, without guilt. Stop letting back in the people who once made your life feel like a war zone. Stop answering the calls of those who never once checked on your heart. Some of the most powerful, peaceful moves you'll ever make will look cold to others, but they'll feel like fire to your soul. That silence, that stillness, that's you. Coming home to yourself, that's you choosing peace over performance. That's you healing on your own terms. Performance is exhausting, but peace is life-changing. And choosing it will shift everything. You don't need to fight every battle. You don't need to attend every argument you're invited to. Choosing to walk away isn't weakness. It's wisdom. Sometimes the loudest, strongest response is no response at all. Growth shows up in moments when their chaos no longer moves you, when their words fall flat against the walls of your peace, when you no longer rise to every insult, every passive jab, every attempt to provoke. Because peace teaches you restraint. It reminds you that not every fire needs your fuel. Some flames die out on their own. When you finally reach that level of self-control, of awareness, you'll look around and realize something powerful. You're no longer surviving, you're living. Your peace doesn't come from being liked. It doesn't come from convincing the wrong people to see your worth. It doesn't come from explaining yourself to crowds who've already made up their minds. That's a trap, a cycle of exhaustion that leaves you empty. But when you learn to sit with yourself in stillness, in silence, content, you realize you don't need the noise. You don't need the claps. You don't need the audience. Because your worth was never in their hands. Your value is not up for debate. The loudest kind of love comes from within. And when you start nurturing that inner peace, that quiet confidence, you walk into rooms differently. You stop begging for a seat at the table. You either bring your own or you walk away entirely. Some people won't understand your stillness. They'll misread your silence as arrogance, your solitude as loneliness. But that's only because they've never known the power of sitting with themselves long enough to hear their own soul speak. Don't let their discomfort disrupt your healing. You're not cold, you're clear. You're not distant, you're deliberate. You're not detached, you're disciplined. And that matters. You've cried behind closed doors, you've broken in silence, you've rebuilt yourself brick by brick without anyone watching. So now, when someone tries to shake your foundation, they find it's made of stone. Because once you know the value of your peace, you stop entertaining anything that threatens it. There is nothing more powerful than a person who's found peace in who they are. No more pretending, no more chasing, no more begging someone to choose you. That chapter is closed. Peace turns you into your own home, your own safe space. You stop searching for what you've already built within. And when that inner revolution takes root, it shows, it radiates. It draws in what's real and repels what's not. You stop over-explaining. You stop apologizing for your boundaries. You start honoring your soul like the sacred place it is. Because if someone can't respect that, their time in your life has expired. Yes, people will test your peace. Life will throw storms your way, but now you move differently. You pause, you breathe, you ask, is this worth my peace? And most of the time, the answer is no. You begin to preserve your energy like it's gold, because it is. Peace is what lets you think clearly, love deeply, rest fully, and live freely. Don't trade that for drama, not for guilt, not for company. If keeping someone means losing yourself, it's too high a cost. And you've paid that price before. Not anymore. You've been the one who gave too much, who tolerated too long, who stayed silent just to keep the peace, even as it tore you apart. But now you know, real peace isn't silence at your own expense. It's speaking truth gently. It's walking away softly. It's creating space for joy, for healing, for wholeness. You're not who you used to be. You've grown. You've earned this new chapter. And in this chapter, your peace comes first. Let the world adjust. You're not here to carry everyone's weight. You're here to walk in purpose, in power, and in peace. And that peace, it's not optional. It's everything. So when someone asks why you've changed, why you're distant, why you're no longer available for the same old games, cycles, and chaos, just smile. Smile because you no longer owe an explanation. Smile because peace doesn't shout. It just is. You don't need to justify choosing yourself. You don't need to defend your healing. You don't need to make excuses for living in light and letting go of what once dimmed you. Your peace is priceless. Protect it like your future depends on it, because it does. There was a time you kept quiet to avoid conflict, a time you smiled through pain, nodded through disrespect, tried to be okay when everything inside was breaking, but not anymore. You've learned, you've grown. And now your peace is your priority, and that changes everything. They said, I didn't mean it that way. And you believed them. You gave them chance after chance. You excused the behavior. You told yourself you were just being too sensitive. But now, you're waking up. You're starting to see it wasn't kindness that kept you quiet. It was fear. Fear of being alone. Fear of losing people. Fear of being labeled too much. But hear this, you were never too much. You were just surrounded by people who were never enough. People who couldn't meet you where you stood, who weren't capable of loving you the way you deserved. And now it's time to outgrow that version of you. The one who stayed silent, the one who tolerated less, the one who swallowed their worth just to keep others comfortable. Growth isn't always pretty. It doesn't always come wrapped in peace. Sometimes it arrives cloaked in anger, in heartbreak, in long nights of asking why they couldn't see your value. Then one day, it clicks. You wake up and realize you're done. Done begging for basic respect. Done reminding people of your loyalty, your love, your light. You stop proving yourself to people who never had the capacity to see you, and in that moment, something shifts. You reclaim your power. You stop tolerating half-effort love, surface-level loyalty, words that never match actions. You start setting boundaries so strong they feel like walls to the wrong people. And that's exactly the point. Because those boundaries, They're not there to push everyone out. They're there to filter who gets to come in. You realize that respect isn't optional, it's the bare minimum. You stop making excuses for people who constantly made you feel small. You stop laughing off the disrespect, brushing past the manipulation, ignoring the red flags. You're not cold. You're conscious now. You're not distant. You're deliberate. You've learned that real love should never ask you to abandon yourself. Anyone who makes you choose between your peace and their comfort has no place in your life. The old you might have reasoned with them, might have kept them around, might have tried just one more time. But the healed you, the new you walk away, and you don't look back. You've outgrown the games, outgrown the noise, outgrown the people and patterns that made you forget who you are. Let them say you've changed. You have, because growth requires change. And sometimes that change looks like silence, like distance, like not engaging in the drama you used to, like protecting your energy as if it's sacred, because it is. You stop explaining your worth. You stop shrinking to fit into places you've outgrown. You stop seeking closure from those who never gave you clarity in the first place. Because now you know how to give that closure to yourself. You've learned that standing alone doesn't make you weak. It makes you strong. It makes you free. That version of you, the one who let disrespect wear the mask of loyalty, isn't coming back. You've grown past that. You've learned to love yourself deeply, and with that love, you've become less available to the things that used to hurt you. You no longer sit at tables where love is conditional and respect is selective. You no longer participate in conversations that leave you confused or broken. You see it all now. You see how you poured into people who only showed up with empty hands, and you don't hate yourself for that. You forgive yourself, not for what you accepted, but for not knowing better. Because that version of you was doing the best they could. But this version of you knows better. And with that knowledge comes a new standard, a new voice, a new way of walking that demands nothing less than what you freely give to others. You've realized not everyone deserves front row access to your life. Some people were only meant to be chapters, not the whole book, and you're not bitter, you're better. You're not holding grudges, you're holding boundaries. There's a difference. You don't seek revenge, you seek peace. You don't clap back, you walk away. Because now you know. Your energy is currency, and you're done spending it on people who can't afford your presence. The old you would have explained, would have begged. The new you leave. Quietly, powerfully, without a word. That silence, that stillness, that is your strength now. Because the ones who truly love you won't ask you to shrink, to silence yourself, or to sacrifice your peace for their comfort. They won't guilt you into staying. They'll honor your boundaries, not resent them, and that's what you're waiting for now. The real ones. You've become patient, not desperate, selective, not bitter, because now you finally understand. Peace isn't just what you want, it's what you deserve. Choice, one you make every single day. Peace is better than attention. Respect holds more weight than empty words. And solitude? It's far more nourishing than fake companionship. Your self-love, it's not up for debate anymore. It's your foundation, your armor, your quiet revolution. You've outgrown their version of love, the one that demanded you shrink to fit, the one that left you confused more than comforted, the one that hurt more than it healed. You've stopped dancing for their approval, stopped waiting for their apology, stopped needing them to validate what you already know. You are worthy, and now you live that truth. You embody it. You look in the mirror and see someone who no longer begs to be chosen, because you've chosen yourself, boldly, proudly, unapologetically. Yes, it may have cost you some people. Yes, it may have meant walking through a season of loneliness, but that loneliness, it birthed your strength, that silence, it restored your voice, that isolation. It introduced you to the most powerful version of who you are. You stopped asking, "What did I do wrong?" and started saying, "This is what I deserve." And that's when everything began to shift. You started attracting peace. You began protecting your joy. You made space for things that align with your soul, and you never looked back, because growth isn't always loud. But it is life-changing. So if you're wondering whether it's okay to walk away from what disrespects you, let me answer that for you. It's not just okay. It's necessary. It's sacred. It's survival. You weren't born to carry people who refuse to grow. You were born to rise, to evolve, to become someone your younger self would look at with pride. Every time you say no to disrespect, every time you choose peace over drama, every time you stand in your worth, you take one step closer to the life you were always meant to live. You're not who you used to be. You've outgrown that version, and there's no going back. Because there comes a moment when peace becomes more valuable than opinions, more sacred than attention, more powerful than being right. You've played that game. You've explained yourself to people who didn't care to understand. You've argued with those who only listened to reply, not to grow. You've called chaos loyalty just to feel less alone. But now you see it for what it is. You see the manipulation, the drama, the emotional bait, and you no longer bite. Because every time you react, you give away a piece of your peace. Every time you defend yourself to someone who wants to misunderstand you, you shrink your energy just to make them comfortable. That ends now. You're done feeding dysfunction. You're done playing games that cost you your soul, because some people don't want healing, they want chaos. They want to provoke you, confuse you, spin you in circles just to feel powerful. But when you stop responding, when you go silent, when you detach with peace instead of panic, watch how quickly they unravel. That calm, that silence, it's a mirror, and it shows them exactly what they've been hiding from. They'll lie, they'll twist your words, they'll bait you. Let them talk. Let them fume. Let them scream into the void, because the truth doesn't need a platform to remain true. You don't owe them your voice. You don't owe them your energy. And you sure don't owe them your peace. Some battles aren't worth fighting. Some arguments are traps. And some people only come to steal your light, but you've learned, you've grown. And now you walk with discernment, not desperation. You're not here to convince anyone. You're not here to prove your worth. You're here to protect it, because peace, real peace, isn't passive. It's powerful, it's a choice. And you've chosen it, you've chosen you. And that, more than anything, is the shift that changes everything. Never really did. And either way, you win. Discipline is you saying, I'm not lowering my vibration just to match your chaos. The old you might have fired back, typed out a paragraph, hit send, lost sleep. But the new you pause, you breathe, you read it and let it sit. You hear the gossip and don't flinch. You feel the heat and just keep walking, because now you know. Not everything deserves your energy. Not every jab deserves a response. Some things are simply beneath you. And that's not arrogance. That's awareness. That's growth. That's wisdom earned through the fire. The version of you who once got dragged into every storm, who wore drama like a second skin, who confused noise for love. That version, gone. You've stepped into something different now. Something stronger. Something still. It takes maturity to protect your peace in a world that rewards conflict. It takes power to choose silence when shouting would feel justified. It takes strength to walk away, not because you're weak, but because you're too evolved to entertain what no longer serves you. And yes, at first it might feel strange. You might miss the chaos because drama used to feel like attention. But peace, real peace, is a deeper comfort. It doesn't scream, it doesn't beg to be noticed. It just is. Quiet, steady, healing. And the more you protect it, the more you realize you never needed that chaos to feel whole. You don't need to be in every conversation. You don't need to defend yourself against every lie. You don't need to explain yourself to people who are already committed to misunderstanding you. That's not your job. Your job is to stay grounded in your truth. Your job is to walk in your purpose, not someone else's narrative. Your job is to be unshakable in the face of noise that only exists to distract. Let them twist the story. Let them whisper. Let them tell their version. Your power isn't in their mouths. It's in your control. You don't need to light fires to be seen. You don't need to clap back to prove a point. Your growth? That'll speak louder than your words ever could. And your calm will scare them. Because they thought they could break you, but here you are, unmoved. Your refusal to react is your liberation. You'll find peace when you stop responding to what doesn't deserve access to your spirit. You'll find joy when you stop renting space in your mind to negativity. You'll find freedom not in control, but in letting go, in surrendering the urge to fix, argue, or be right. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is walk away, quietly, with dignity, with your head held high and your soul intact. Let them stir the pot. Let them shout. You're not even at that table anymore. You're in a new room now, a higher frequency, a better chapter. That's where your power lives. So next time drama knocks on your door, don't answer. Don't peek, don't explain. Just breathe and let it pass. Your silence, that's not weakness, that's wisdom, that's healing. That's what it looks like when you finally stop feeding the drama and start feeding your soul. There comes a moment in life when you realize love isn't just about how you treat others. It's about how you treat yourself. And boundaries, they're not cold, they're not rude, they're not walls to push people away. They are doors, designed to protect the sanctuary within. You've been stretched, drained, pulled in every direction and called it love, loyalty, or duty. But truthfully, you were bleeding while others were feeding. Now it's time to stop betraying yourself to keep others comfortable. Your peace, your time, your mental space, sacred ground. And not everyone deserves access to it. They may say you're selfish now, that you've changed. But here's the truth, they just got used to your lack of boundaries. They got comfortable with the version of you who never said no, who always showed up even when you were running on empty. Now that you're pulling back, they're calling it betrayal. But growth always feels like betrayal to the people who only benefited from your silence. You're not hard to love. You're just no longer easy to use. And that shift? That difference? It changes everything, because once you start honoring that, once you start choosing you, they will either respect you or they'll reveal they never did. Either way, you win. Boundaries aren't barriers, they're filters. They don't block love, they protect it. They shield your heart from exhaustion, your mind from manipulation, your time from being wasted, and your spirit from being drained by people who only show up to take. You are fully allowed to say, I'm not available for that energy. You're allowed to step away from chaos, from entitlement, from anything that smells like disrespect. You don't need permission to protect your peace. You don't owe anyone unlimited access to your soul. That's not love, that's not loyalty. That's self-abandonment wearing a polite smile, and it ends now. With this choice, to love yourself out loud. When you begin setting boundaries, expect resistance, expect pushback, expect people to call you distant, arrogant, or different. But keep going. Because the ones who truly love you will adapt, the ones who care will understand, and the ones who don't, let them go. You are not here to shrink for someone else's comfort. You are not required to be a doormat just to prove you're a good person. Love yourself enough to choose peace over pleasing. Love yourself enough to say, no, not today. Love yourself enough to walk away from sweet words wrapped in subtle disrespect. Because here's the truth. People will test you. They'll see how little they can give you and still keep you. And you? You've spent too long calling that love. You were taught to be kind, but never taught how to be strong. Told to turn the other cheek, but not how to walk away when both sides have been slapped. But now you're learning. You're unlearning. You're shedding the mask of people-pleasing and stepping into your truth. And that truth is this. Boundaries are not cruelty. They are clarity. They say, this is how I love, and this is how I expect to be loved. They teach others how to treat you, not through what you say, but through what you allow, through consistency, through self-respect, through consequences. If someone can't meet you at that standard, they were never meant to sit at your table. You've given too much to those who offered you crumbs. You've poured into cups that were full of holes. And now it's time to reclaim yourself, not through empty affirmations, but through boundaries that protect you. Every time you say no to toxicity, you say yes to your healing. Every time you choose peace over chaos, you honor your growth. Every time you walk away from disrespect, you say, I'm listening to my soul now. Because you finally believe the whisper that's been in you all along. You deserve more. The world will try to convince you that your worth is tied to how much you give. But giving without limits, that's not love. That's self-neglect, and it will break you piece by piece. That's why you felt tired. That's why you felt invisible. Because you've been showing up for people who disappear when you need them. But now you've changed. Now you're aware, and awareness is power. It teaches you not everyone deserves access. Not every relationship is forever. Not every phone call deserves your time. Your peace is too expensive to negotiate. Your soul is too sacred to trade for temporary attention. Let them talk. Let them say you're different. Let them call you cold or detached. Those words won't break you the way self-abandonment did. You've lived that life. You've paid that price. And it nearly cost you everything. Your joy, your identity, your voice. So now, you're choosing you. Not out of superiority, but because you finally understand your worth. You're not building walls. You're building doors. Doors that lock. Doors that only open for safe, healthy love. Doors that say, only what honors me may enter here. Yes, you will lose people. Let's not sugarcoat that. Some will walk away when you stop sacrificing yourself for their convenience. Some will ghost when you stop playing the role they assigned to you. Let them, because your boundary didn't break the relationship. Their inability to respect it did. That's not on you. You just held up a mirror. And now, you're free. Free to create the life you deserve. Free to welcome deeper love, real connection, and a heart that no longer bleeds for people who never earned your blood in the first place. Boundaries are love. They're self-love. And it's time the world sees you walking in it, unapologetically. Because the moment you stop betraying yourself for others, you step into your power. You stop being drained, and you start being aligned. And in that alignment, you find the version of yourself you were always meant to become. Who you are inside, that untamed, unseen, unshaken part of you, it's always been waiting. But when you're standing at the edge of change, it's easy to freeze, easy to convince yourself this is just how things are. But let me tell you something. Real. Freedom doesn't come wrapped in comfort. It doesn't whisper politely. It's born in fire. It begins with one bold step, one decision to stop living on repeat, to stop existing in someone else's version of your life, to rewrite your story. That's the moment everything changes. Freedom doesn't wait for fear to leave. It moves in spite of it. Even when your legs are shaking, even when your voice cracks, even when your heart is pounding, you don't need to see the whole path. You don't need to have all the answers. You just need to take the first step. That bold, trembling, terrifying step away from what's breaking you, away from the lies that tell you to stay small. That step is your declaration. I will no longer be a prisoner of fear. And fear? Oh, it's always loud right before you move. It screams in your ear. You're not ready. You're too broken. It's too late. But hear this. Fear is a liar. It only has power when you stand still. The second you move, just a little, you silence it. You cut its voice in half. And each time you stand up for yourself. Each time you say no to what isn't love. Each time you speak truth to your own soul, you reclaim your power. That's what real freedom looks like. Not always grand, not always visible. Sometimes it's just you in the dark whispering to yourself, I deserve more than this. You've been taught to settle, taught to shrink, taught to apologize for dreaming bigger, for wanting more, for expecting better from life and from people and from yourself. And every time you gave in to that voice, you built a cage made of what-ifs and what will they think. But you were never meant to stay caged. There's a lion inside you. There's a storm that's been silenced, and all that pressure, that weight you feel, that's your spirit trying to break free. It's your purpose pounding against the walls of your comfort zone. One bold step is all it takes to crack it open, to breathe again, to feel alive again, to stop just existing and finally start living. Stop waiting for someone to give you permission. Stop waiting for the world to hand you your dream. No one's coming to save you. That's your job, your responsibility, your right. It doesn't matter how long you've been stuck. It doesn't matter how many times you've fallen. What matters is what you do now, right now. Boldness doesn't come from confidence. It creates it. You don't wait for courage. You act, and then courage shows up. One step. That's all it takes. Not 10, not a perfect plan, just one. And then another and another. Until one day you look up and realize you're not trapped anymore. You're not surviving. You're free. You owe it to yourself to find out who you could be if fear wasn't making your decisions. You owe it to your younger self, the one who dreamed in color. And you owe it to your future self, the one depending on your strength. Right now, the version of you that's healed, whole, radiant, they're waiting on the other side of one choice, to speak, to move, to try, to leave. Whatever it is, that thing pulling at your soul, begging to be released, that's your path. No, you won't have it all figured out. But that's okay. The path doesn't appear to the comfortable. It reveals itself to the brave. You weren't made to sit in rooms that drain your light. You weren't created to serve people who take you for granted. You weren't born to relive the same heartbreak over and over. Freedom is your birthright. But like every gift, it must be claimed. And when you move toward truth, toward courage, toward you, life will rise to meet you in ways you've never imagined. Yes, you'll lose people. You'll outgrow environments. You'll scare the ones who loved your silence more than your strength, but don't let that stop you. Because nothing feels better than becoming who you were always meant to be. There will be pain. Yes. Growth is uncomfortable. Change is hard. Loss is real. But the pain of staying stuck, of betraying yourself every single day, that's the slowest kind of death, and you deserve more. You deserve mornings without heaviness, a night without regret, a life where peace isn't rare, it's normal. But that life only begins with a choice. One bold step. Maybe it's making the call. Maybe it's cutting the tie. Maybe it's finally telling yourself the truth you've been avoiding. Whatever it is, you already know. Deep down, you know. And now it's time to act on what you know, not tomorrow, not someday, now. Because nothing changes if nothing changes. You can pray, you can hope, you can visualize, but if you don't move your feet, your prayers become prisons. Because faith without action is fantasy, so take the step, take the risk, take yourself seriously. Because freedom, it's waiting on the other side of you. If you want to be free, walk like you're already free. Speak like the chains have already fallen off. Think like your breakthrough has already arrived, because that mindset, that movement, that's where the shift begins. That's when the doors start opening. That's when strength rises in your chest like a fire no one can put out. Taking the bold step isn't the finish line. It's the spark, the ignition. It's the moment that sets everything else in motion. And when you take that step, yes, even with trembling hands, even when it feels small, you're going to feel something powerful. A glimpse of yourself without fear. A taste of the life you've been quietly craving. That glimpse will carry you. It'll keep you moving on the hard days. It'll remind you that you're not powerless. You never were. You were just waiting. And now, the wait is over. It's time to stop asking for permission. Time to stop explaining your worth. Time to stop playing it safe just to survive. You weren't born to survive. You were born to rise. And it all begins with one bold, beautiful, terrifying, and liberating step. Sometimes life whispers. Sometimes it shouts. But the truth never changes. You were not created to live small. You weren't placed here to be quiet in the face of disrespect. You weren't made to carry pain that isn't yours or trade your peace for people who wouldn't even lift a finger for you. Every lesson you've learned, every silent moment that taught you power, every goodbye that was really a beginning, every boundary built from self-love, every time you said, "This is not enough." It's all been leading here. To this truth, your freedom begins the moment you decide you're worth fighting for. You're not here to be buried beneath opinions. You're not responsible for fixing what someone else shattered. You're not meant to stay in a chapter your soul has already outgrown. Drama dies when you stop feeding it. Freedom rises when you stop waiting for permission. You are allowed to walk away. You are allowed to say no. You are allowed to outgrow the version of yourself that called chaos love. And you are absolutely allowed to protect your peace like it's the last flame in the dark, because it is. This journey, this transformation, it's not about becoming someone new. It's about returning to who you were before the world taught you to doubt yourself, before you were told you were too much, before they convinced you to lower your standards, before you believed your voice didn't matter, You were always enough. You were always worthy. You just forgot, but now you remember. Now you walk taller. Now your voice may be softer, but it carries more power. You don't chase closure. You embody it. You don't chase people. You protect your presence. You don't seek freedom. You walk in it, and all it takes is one step. One deep breath. One moment of courage where you finally say, I'm done settling. The world might not clap. They might not understand. But your soul, it will. It will rise. It will breathe. And it will thank you, because you were never meant for survival mode. You were meant to thrive, to live on purpose. To own your space with dignity, with power, and with unshakable peace. And no matter how far you've wandered, no matter how heavy it's been, you can start again, right now, right here, bold, free, unapologetically alive. Thank you for giving your heart room to hear the truth. Thank you for choosing yourself, even when it hurts. Thank you for walking toward freedom. May your steps be bold, your peace be unshaken, and your light never dim again. Stay strong, stay grounded, and above all, stay free. God bless you.